It's okay to be bothered. It's okay to be annoyed by the things that are going on in society. It's natural, it's inevitable, it's something we all have to contend with. No matter how much we try to hide ourselves away from all of the world chaos, ultimately, since we all seek something very similar, which is connection, community, and community is the cornerstone of a healthy relationship with ourselves and with society. Because of this, we are all society, we are all part of society, and we all have to interact. For example, during the pandemic, regardless of what you believed or didn't believe, you were still affected by the fact that maybe your store was shut down. Maybe your kids didn't get to go to school. And perhaps you built up some resentment over the past couple of years about the way that that was all handled. I feel like we're at a turning point now where a lot more evidence is starting to come forward to show that there were a lot of mistakes made during that time. And yet, because of the fact that people have been so dug in politically in their opinions about masks and mandates and everything else, hush now. I feel because of the fact that we've been so divided, people have dug in their heels so deep that they refuse to concede on any points on either side. And this isn't just from the pandemic, this goes on into various scientific disciplines, into our education system, into jobs, healthcare, the workplace, political views, racial views, cultural views. We're so dug in, so deep, that it seems that arguing is the very first thing that most people are ready to do. There aren't very many discussions being had. Mind you, there are some phenomenal discussions. I've heard a lot of great podcasts, and especially because podcasts are long form and live, you can't really fool the camera. It's not like a 5-minute YouTube video where somebody edits the hell out of it and just jump cuts out everything they don't want to say. It's straight from the heart, and you can tell when a person's holding back. So that's why I take a podcast to be a little more of a real approach. But ultimately, no matter how positive we try to make the discussions that we have about life, ultimately things come up that bother us. And usually these things relate to people feeling like they're either their freedoms are infringed, or their right to free speech, or they're personally attacked for something they don't feel is correct or right. It's very interesting because if a person's generally attacked for something that they do believe in, for example, um, and they're willing to admit it, they'll say, "Yeah, I don't care what you think." But it's much worse when a person's accused of something that they didn't do, and that's very easy to do in the modern day with the internet. It's easy to point the finger at other people and say, "Yeah, this person feels this way, and this person's this," because you can hide behind the screen. But because of this, and this also relates to the video I made previously about kind of this woke culture BS. There's a lot of faux outrage out there. And I mean, it is the fakest of the fake. When you see people who are screaming and ranting online about things that really don't matter, at least to most people, as if it's, the doom and gloom and society is horrible and everybody's this and everybody's a racist. And you start to see these things and you say, are things really as bad as people are making them out to be? And you find that a lot of people just want to complain. A lot of people want to complain about everything. And the reason that's a problem is because there are many issues that are worth complaining about. Bureaucracy, the way that people's tax dollars are being wasted on pointless wars, and how healthcare is horrendous in this country, how the education system is falling apart. Instead, people aren't arguing about whether schools should be better, they're arguing about whether schools should teach this or teach that. We can work out the details of what's taught once we get the schools fixed in the first place, you see? We're talking about whether or not, we should, spend this money here or there. Let's fix the infrastructure in our country. Let's get some things figured out before we argue about petty things. However, there are some things that really are worth discussing that are just being drowned out by this banter, which I believe is the most efficient, up to date form of propaganda that one could possibly imagine. The idea that you can program a computer now to post incendiary comments on YouTube videos, on Twitter feeds, Instagram, wherever, to recognize certain phrases and discussions, and to interject an AI discussion within that particular subject, and seek out all of the videos and all of the blogs and vlogs that deal with this topic, and to insert something incendiary in order to keep people distracted and fighting amongst themselves. It's something that you would see in a science fiction movie, 20 years ago, but something that we're living through right now. The fact that people are arguing with bots, don't even realize it, and that every year it gets worse. This is by design. There are people out there who spend very little money to promote their propaganda. And this fascinates me because when I was a kid, for example, if you wanted to promote propaganda, you had a couple of choices. Either A, you could buy ad time on television, but even then, you could only say so much. B, most likely, you would get the government on your side so you could spread your propaganda through by using the government and their funds, which plenty of companies did. And or C, you can fund it yourself by printing books and leaflets and magazines and distributing them, which plenty of companies have done. But today, it doesn't take millions or billions of dollars. It takes one guy with a computer and the resources and the servers and the know-how to create a website out of thin air that pretends that something's real that's not, or that uses a variety of different deepfakes and techniques now we know how the human mind works, to the point where if you see a picture, even if it's fake, and you find out it's fake later, it doesn't matter. It goes back to the old terminology, and we've heard this all before, that first impressions are everything. And there's another term that relates more to topics, which is a lie makes it halfway around the world before the truth can get its pants on. And that's because the lies are always more volatile and anger-inducing. And people buy into it because deep down inside we have this subconscious urge to argue and to prove our points and to fight about things. And that is catered to by the powers that be in order to keep the people distracted. Now I sound like a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist, and that's fine. I'm not new to this because I've been actually studying ever since I was a teenager. I learned about the Rockefellers and Standard Oil and how they consolidated all these companies. I've seen a lot of shit going on, but I've learned so much about the history of conspiracies and BS that it's hard not to believe that it's happening right now, to such a degree that the propaganda no longer needs to be printed on leaflets. It no longer needs to be spread by word of mouth. It can be a simple illusion created by some YouTuber or a group of individuals posing as some sort of a hero, and people buy into it. And there are a lot of distractions. So I guess my point here is that it's okay to be angry about things. It's okay to be frustrated. It's a matter of how we deal with it. Are we fighting amongst each other? Are we calling each other names? Or are we really talking about the facts and the figures, which I'll admit have been very difficult to come by, especially with what's been going on with the scientific community basically buying consensus and creating this illusion that there are certain people out there who know the science, Never in my life growing up have I ever heard the science until a couple of years ago. There is no the science. There never was. It's always ever changing as new discoveries are made. If there was the science, then we'd still be doing shit we did in the 1800s. And believe me, there was a time when doctors laughed at other doctors for believing that washing your hands might prevent infection in mothers when you're giving birth. It's a very simple concept now, but back then there was a lot of ridicule put out. The thing is, we're ever changing as we discover new truths, and that never stopped with any modern situation. So that's why I'm kind of frustrated about the way that science has become the science, and that's another discussion altogether. And I'll touch on that topic eventually. It will be safe to talk about the last couple of years in the pandemic because, as you know, I've had like 3 videos, deleted by YouTube's algorithm because they were medical misinformation, even though anything I said in them has turned out to be true, even confirmed by the companies themselves now, which say it was, this medicine was never intended to stop spread. It was never tested to see if it stopped contagion. It's amazing to me that people have dug in so far now that we can't even look at the facts anymore. And it's a weird time to be alive. And I think that's was is definitely fostered, if nothing else, by the powers that be. So, rant over. I'll talk to y'all next time. Peace out.